I just want to say a little bit about this DVD. This is called the Jesus DVD, and it is about the birth, the life, the miracles, the crucifixion, and the resurrection of Jesus. And it also has an invitation on it. And we just got 1,000 copies of this DVD. And this movement started in Fort Lauderdale, I believe it was. All the churches got together and gave out copies this to every single person in Fort Lauderdale. Then they started in Texas, and they're trying to give a copy of this to every single person in Texas. And we are trying to give a copy of this to everyone in Jefferson County, and eventually into everyone in Kentucky. If you want to go to hear Bob Russell, and if you want a free copy of this DVD, give me a call right now at 895-5025. Somebody there right now that can answer the phone. And if this is a recorded program, that you might have to leave a message on an answering machine if you call it another time. These are very important. This is going to change the course of history, these Jesus DVDs. And the other thing, the state of Arkansas has put In God We Trust in every one of their classrooms. And we're going to do the same thing here in Kentucky. We've got the legislators and everybody lined up to do it. And we need people to help us get these petitions signed. And we're going to use this to get In God We Trust in every classroom in the Kentucky. We can do that. And it's going to take everybody, but we can do that. So you just call that number 895-5025 right now. We'll get that out to you. We'll get you the petition. We can make your reservation to hear Bob Russell. We'll get you your Jesus movie. Now, this Jesus movie is in, I think, 100 different languages. So you can get it in different languages, but this particular one is in about 6 or 8 different languages. They make it in over 100 different languages. So if you're interested in giving a specific group of people where they hear it in their mother tongue, that would be great. That's the story. We want to encourage everyone to call that number, 895-5025. And they can call your website, get into this apprenticeship program.
An important date, actually, September 10, 11, 12, at the fairgrounds, we'll have an apprenticeship summit and a career fair. So on the 10th, it will be a day where we will talk about the same high-level conversations, presenters about apprenticeship. Anyone interested, parents, businesses, students, and all of the high school kids from Jefferson County, surrounding counties are invited. Actually, we expect 5,000 to 8,000 students to
really.
Do that. So I would like to invite anyone interested in learning more about ways to really take control of your life, learn a skill set, excel. Just come visit and participate. September 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Is that during the regular fair?
I don't believe so. This is a separate event.
A separate event?
Yes.
Now, if I have a friend who is living at home with his parents because he can't get a job, could he come?
I would hope that he would be there.
Plenty of jobs.
Jobs to have.
This program will give him the skill set, as you call it.
It will give them the skill set and a national certification. So if you complete an apprenticeship journey, that certificate is valid across the state, in all states across the country.
It's like a degree, only it has practical experience.
And for those businesses, earlier we talked about ways to get engaged. Last week, Secretary Ramsey actually announced an apprenticeship, actually a scholarship.
A scholarship.
Extending it to 60 credit hours in a skills scholarship. So businesses that are interested in hiring high school kids or unemployed people, please look into that. And more information on our website, a Workforce and Education Cabinet website about scholarships and ways that businesses can really participate meaningfully in this.
Tremendous. Okay. Well, this has been Ervin Dimeny, who is the Commissioner in Workforce Development or something like that. And then he's on the Kentucky Board of Education.
The Workforce and Education Cabinet.
Workforce and Education Cabinet. He has been telling us about these new programs, and I'm hoping we can have him back again because he's a tremendous amount of knowledge in here and experience that we'd like to talk to him more about. if you want to get the DVD and the petition and the reservation, call me right now at 895-5025, and we'll get all this material out free right away. God bless. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Simon. I'm an allergist and family doctor, board certified in both allergy and internal medicine. I specialize in allergy, headaches, sinus, hives, cough. Good afternoon and welcome to the rest of the news. Our special guest today is State Representative Ed Holloway. What we're going to talk about today is this booklet, which is put out by Judicial Watch, which is probably the most successful and the largest group that's fighting corruption in our government. Was that fair?
That pretty well summarizes it because they've done such a fantastic job of filing lawsuits after lawsuits and trying to break through this thing. The investigations into the George Soros and the activities of his charitable foundations and its ties to the agencies of the U.S. federal government. So they use the Federal Multiple Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the U.S. State Department, U.S. Agency for International Development, seeking the records of alleged collusion between George Soros and those agencies and delegitimize and to destabilize democracy and elected conservative foreign governments in violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. That's internationally as well as locally. And what they've done is formed lawsuits, and Judicial Watch has uncovered so much stuff. And there's a new book that's just been released by Greg Jarrett, who is a commentator, a legal analyst, and all that on Fox, Netwetter, and all that. But he's been around for a long time, and he's written a book called The Russian Hoax, and that's the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump. A lot of the information he has in this book that clarifies the fact that he had put into this book was a result of some of the things that Judicial Watch has done in the lawsuits that they have filed against the various agencies.
Okay, I was thinking we ought to start with a definition of the deep state.
Right.
Because it's kind of a new concept. And I was going to say the deep state is made up of extreme left-wingers, and we're talking about one-worlders, unelected by and large.
Completely, and this is the bureaucratic structure we put into place over the years, and it's not something that's new. This is a cancerous growth that's been formulated over the last 50 years, and it's reached a point now they're becoming...
They sort of call the shots.
They're trying. And what you've got is so many people that have reached levels of power, and their egos and the rest of that, and they're doing everything they can not only to maintain that, but to further it in their efforts for a one world order. And they're threatened by people like Donald Trump, and what they're trying to do. They've corrupted the Justice Department, and I've known attorneys and others that have been in the Justice Department that are just livid about what's been happening with the leadership there. Same thing with the FBI. I talked to 2 former FBI agents that are retired. And when you retire from the FBI, for example, you turn in your badge, gun, and everything else, and you have complete removal of any connection with anybody within the organization. So they were sent out, but they look at, see what's happening. And that's what's made this book that Greg Garrett has written such a hot item. It went almost overnight. The #1 in the country is selling like
no kidding.
Because the general public of America is starved for information, for facts, for truth.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about this at other shows where we talked about the fact that the media, the academic community, and Hollywood have all collaborated as part of this overall thing of the deep state.
And I guess some of this deep state is a leftover from the Obama administration.
Exactly. This is another part. It gave them an opportunity during that 8 years to further their efforts, to place their people in the key spots. And before Obama left, all of the people that he had brought into the system have now been placed in agencies and departments of government and under a law that you cannot fire them over that. The problem with this kind of cover-up and all the things about it is going to take months, if not years, for the truth to finally emerge. And in the meantime, we have to make sure everything stays on course. That this election coming up in November is the most critical election, I guess, in the history of this country.
The other thing, as far as defining the deep state, is that chant that they chanted at Berkeley a few months back saying, "No Trump, no wall, no USA at all."
This is the thing. We've got all of these protests that are going on that have been all this since the Wall Street test and all the other things. And now we've got the ones going on right now in downtown Louisville. And these people are being funded through these various organizations of millions and millions of dollars, actually billions, that Soros and others have pumped into the creation of these organizations. And they're led and they're all being funded and they're paid. You take people sitting out on the street for days at a time with no visible source of income or anything. How are they doing it? And there's the solution. That's through the charitable foundations that he created that are causing all these things.
And of course, the liberal media is a big part of it.
Exactly. They've refused to tell any of the truth. All this sensationalism and all this other created stuff without giving the facts.
Yeah, and it seems to me when you analyze it that a lot of the deep state has similar goals as the Democrat Party.
Well, this is another thing, and I've been involved in things like this forever. I'm now the past 80s, into the 80s and all that, and I look back at what it was like 50, 60 years ago and what it is today. And this kind of thing has happened very slowly, but in the process they've gained more and more ground. And in that process of the deep state, they're all in bed together because they all have the same ultimate goal. And the same thing with the people that have infiltrated not only the media, but the academic community, the professors and others. And this is one of the things that they used in their Judicial Watch has uncovered, that the professor was the one that calmly had, as a part of the FBI without salary, but he had credentials, he had everything else, and he was the one that was leaking to the media false information that he wanted. So all of this stuff is going on, and without the public knowing, and without the people in the rank and file having any collusion with any of this stuff. It's all the top level, and it's that kind of corruption. And their intoxication with their power and the corruption, and they want more.
Yeah, you can see why they hate Trump.
Exactly, because he's the biggest threat, not only their goals and objectives with themselves personally. And there's a lot of these people that I used to tell my friends before we were talking about it, all these people, if they lost their jobs at the federal government, they're paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And if they lost their job, their qualifications are zero. They couldn't get a job as a greeter at Walmart.
Some of the recent moves of the deep state include protecting Hillary against the charges of Benghazi, her illegal email setup, and really she's the one that colluded with the Russians to pay them to make up this dossier.
Well, this is the thing there. The Judicial Watch is sued for the records of a uranium deal that was orchestrated by Hillary. And the Clinton Foundation had received tens of millions of dollars from the Russians and part of that uranium one deal. All that, and the corruption and the felonies that have been broken in all of the laws, and it's been a cover-up because she's part of that system. They thought she was going to be the elected president of the United States. So in order to protect themselves, they had to protect her. And in that process, you got all that. And then Donald Trump has become such a threat to everything that they've established and whatever thing they want to do. And this is why they hate Trump and the non-Trumpers and all that kind of atmosphere that's out there.
Trump is trying to make America great again, and they're trying to destroy it.
We haven't had an economy with the growth that we've had in the last 2 quarters in the last 50, 60 years. And minorities have gained tremendously under this. Talking about Hispanics and the black community and others that have never lived it well. And they're still having to fight. We've got the black community here, community trying to get charter schools and things like that and being false organizations. And I've watched the Jefferson County. Richard Van Hoos was a personal friend. And if he was here today and look at what's happened to the Jefferson County community education system, I couldn't begin to tell you whatever his reactions would be. And this is the kind of thing we've got. And busing had nothing to do with education. It was a process of social integration of communities and had nothing to do with education in children. They varied the things that the report out of California where it was experimented with 30, 40 years ago. And then they did long-range study of what happened to the children were involved with all the busing and other things, and the psychological damage that was done to them over their adulthood. And so this is kind of stuff that people are profiting tremendously from this kind of thing. The number of buses, the maintenance, all of that,
yeah.
and millions and millions of dollars going into that when should be going into classroom.
And they tell us that the black students are getting less education now than they did before.
Exactly. And that started earlier on when they wanted to downgrade the quality of education to make it more compatible with the black community. And it's continued to decline. And they are the victims of this social maneuvering that's been taking place. And this is where Judicial Watch comes back into the thing.
Yes.
Files these lawsuits to get the truth and bring it out in court. But it's a long, drawn-out process.
Yeah,
to file a suit, to go through the court, then go to appeal. In the interim, they still keep expanding and expanding.
These different government organizations don't want to give them the freedom of information.
Exactly, and they don't want to give up their power.
Now, they say that Comey already decided that Hillary was innocent before she was ever questioned.
That was a process. They had to protect her because when she becomes president, it affects their jobs and their positions. Where they wanted to ingratiate themselves to her, who is, in their opinion, going to be the next president.
And they say that Comey had already decided that Trump was guilty before they even started that investigation.
This is the thing, just to make sure that even if he did, by some fluke, anything else, they could have him impeached and kicked out before he ever took office.
And the other thing is how the FBI was even paying for some of this false information in the Trump dossier.
Exactly. And it goes on and on and on. Again, it's being uncovered. And Garrett in that book, The Russian Hoax, has uncovered a tremendous amount of that. And a lot of it's come through the back door from the verdicts that have been resulting of Judicial Watch's lawsuits.
Yeah, they're doing a terrific job. Then the other thing is how they corrupted the IRS to use it as a weapon against conservatives.
And they're doing it still in a moderate form. But the Trump administration has done a good job of trying to correct a lot of these things. But if you remember the lady, all the things she admitted to, she walked away with a pension, a lifetime income, and all of that. So these are the things that are irritating the rank and file American. And they're beginning to see it at one little bit of a time, and they're beginning to take time to see between the lines. And this is where Judicial Watch and other organizations, and I think the religious community needs to make a longer and deeper look at what they're doing and why they're doing it, and that God make it part of their life and make it part of their efforts to see this thing through.
Yeah, like you say, it seems like the rank and file American is finally seeing all the corruption that's going on in the media, the government.
Well, if they stop and look at their children, grandchildren, and what's happening in the education system, and children, an old saying that children are an empty vessel, and what is they're being poured into their minds and heads in these education systems is corrupt. So we need to take another look at that. And Sunday schools could be a big portion of that, and efforts to get through to the child and say what God's intent for their life was.
We have 3 courses. One is creation science, another is American history, and a third is the apologetics, they call it, evidence and the proof that the Bible is true and the resurrection is true and all of this. Really, we need to get that into the churches if at all possible.
It's a situation where God has been removed from everything that they can get their hands on, from the 10 Commandments down the line to even the fact that Christmas, Congress was prohibited under administration from wishing their constituents a Merry Christmas.
Unbelievable.
And it's outrageous, and they've been getting away with it. And this is where we as individuals and citizens who have the right to vote and can turn this thing around.
Exactly. I was going through this book. I think we can get more of these if you want one. It says, Exposing the Deep State Threat to America by Judicial Watch. If you are interested in getting the documentation of what we're talking about today, you can call us at 895-5025 right now. We should be able to answer that phone. If not, there's a answering machine. It says that now they've uncovered pretty good evidence that Obama spied on President Trump, just like Nixon spied on his political.
Exactly, and there was bugs put in different places and all this kind of stuff that was totally illegal and in violation of a dozen laws.
It's all coming out, and thank the Lord for Donald Trump that he is able to, what you might say, contend for the faith that he's.
And he is, rather than firing individuals, he's in the process of eliminating some agencies of government that have no relevance to the growth and society.
What's needed, right.
But if you look at and study the Bible, and this is where it's important for children to become involved, the word anarchist is a biblical connection. And in that, it is to start anew, first destroy the old. And this is exactly what the intent of the deep state is. You have to destroy the United States in order to rebuild this new world order.
Yeah, the utopia.
Exactly. It's a ridiculous thing, but the people actually grown to believe it. And they become what I call useful idiots, promoting the things that are destroying even their own life.
The other thing is the unmasking is the illegal revealing of the identity of American citizens that were found during surveillance of foreign nationals. So now they want to try to cause trouble for these people. The other thing is all of these government organizations are trying to refuse giving up the Freedom of Information Act, information that we need to find out what happened in Benghazi and what happened with all these different.
Even that itself, the corruption there was so overwhelming and everything connected with it. But with several agencies were all involved. The State Department was part of it, but also at the same time the CIA and others that were headed by and then people like that who had actually voted with the communists in the past.
Yeah, I saw that.
And this is the kind of people that got put into those spots by the administration under Obama. All of these things were going on, and then they were trying to cover it up later. And when you've had 4 individuals actually murdered by others because of their neglect, and they were at that time they were taking and trading and bringing weapons and shipping them around and back out door into Libya to support the freedom fighters. It was another story. I won't get into all that. And then those Americans that were killed, and the death of that thing from the ambassador was there. And then Hillary's reaction to that. What difference does it make?
Yeah, amazing.
And that in itself was the most infuriating statement I've ever heard.
There's one other thing I wanted to touch on, and that is there's video, let's see if I can find it here, where is being put out by this video here. It's called the Jesus video, and I can hold it up if you can see that. But this is a video about the birth, the life, the miracles, the crucifixion, and the resurrection. And then it actually has an invitation on this video. People have been giving this out like wildfire. I think it was down in a city in Florida that they gave one of these to everybody in the city. I believe it was Fort Lauderdale. Now they're trying to give this out to everyone in Texas. And we recently got 1,000 of these and we're trying to give them out to everyone in Jefferson County because it is a very powerful video. It's all the material that the public school is trying to keep our children from hearing. We'd like to send you some of this. You can use it at your church to give it out to everyone in your neighborhood. You can even put a schedule of your services in with this so that it would help with church growth. And it's just a tremendous tool. And we'd like to send you one of these right now. If you just call right now, 895-5025, we'll get that out to you right away. Like I say, we've gotten 1,000 of these. We asked them, what are we going to owe you for that? And they said, just send whatever you want. Can you imagine that? I believe they would send them out to churches for free. And the phone number for the organization is right here on the back. It's a 800 number. Here it is, 1-800-675-6980. And this is the organization is called Christ for All People, CAP. So we would really like to send you several of these, really. And if you would call us right now, we would get them in the mail right away. And the number is 895-5025. And the other thing I want to mention is there's been a tremendous problem in our country since they removed prayer and the Ten Commandments and the Bible and creation science from our schools. And this is a petition to put In God We Trust back in our schools. Now, Arkansas has already passed this law and is in the process of putting In God We Trust in every one of their schools. So we would like to send you a copy of this petition so that we can put In God We Trust into all of our schools too. So just call that same number, 895-5025, and we will get you the petitions and the DVDs. And if you want one of these fantastic books by Judicial Watch on the deep state, I think that's really important.
It really is. And the deep state is in a cover-up mode. The FBI, the Justice Department, the special counsel, Robert Mueller, stonewalling the request for the documents to expose Holloway and all the rest of it. There again, where the Judicial Watch has filed the lawsuits under the Freedom of Information Act to get the documents, and they found that they have now been able to get 16,750 pages of this cover-up that
God.
James Comey had documented. This is in response to their lawsuit, and the members of the Congress are now being able to review that. This is the frustrating part, is it takes weeks, months, uncover the truth and all that. But in the interim, the tremendous amount of damage that's done is up to each one of us. Take the classic examples that you've just used and the information we have to reinforce for ourselves the fact that God is on our side.
Absolutely.
And give us the strength and the integrity to carry on and follow through.
Absolutely. It just seems like there's a great move of God in our country now with Trump, our economy, our employment going up, all these tremendous things and these videos. Oh, let me just say real quick about the Doctors for Life is also coming up. You can call that same number. The Doctors for Life is with Pastor Bob Russell, and it's going to be at St. Michael's Orthodox Church at the corner of Hikes Lane and Furman Boulevard. It's on Friday, August 10th at 6 o'clock. It's for dinner, and it's not just a regular dinner. It's roast beef dinner. So it's really good. So just call that same number, 895-5025, and we'll sign you up. With God's help, we can turn this thing around. Well, we want to thank Ed Holloway again for helping us, and we want to invite you to tune in again next week for the rest of the news.